Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your loose change forever. What if the coins sitting in that old jar on your kitchen counter, the ones you've been meaning to roll up and take to the bank for years, what if one of them was secretly worth $50 million? I know, it sounds absolutely impossible. It sounds like the kind of thing you'd see in a movie or read in a fantasy novel. But I promise you, what we're about to talk about today is 100% real, and by the time this video is over, you are going to be racing to check every single nickel you own. Because today we are diving deep into the world of one of the most extraordinary coins ever to quietly slip into American circulation, the 1988 Jefferson Nickel, and not just any version of it. We're talking about a specific, jaw-dropping, collector-obsessed variety of this coin that has been valued at up to $50 million. Yes, you heard that right. $50 million. For a nickel. A 5-cent coin that most people would toss into a tip jar without a second thought. And before we go any further, I want you to know that we have 2 more coins coming up in today's video that are going to absolutely blow your mind, coins that are even more valuable, coins with stories even more dramatic than this one, so do not click away, because trust me, what's coming later in this video is the kind of information that most people never get to hear. But right now, let's talk about the 1988 Jefferson Nickel and why it has the entire numismatic world completely obsessed. So let's go back in time, back to 1988, a year of big hair, blockbuster movies, and a United States Mint that was working overtime to keep up with the enormous demand for circulating coinage across the country. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied mints in American history, was churning out hundreds of millions of nickels that year, and the sheer volume of production created the perfect storm for something incredible, something unexpected, something that the quality control teams at the Mint simply could not catch every single time. You see, when you're producing coins by the hundreds of millions, mistakes happen, and sometimes those mistakes are so subtle, so microscopic, so perfectly hidden in plain sight, that they make it out into the world undetected, slipping quietly into coin rolls, into cash registers, into the pockets of ordinary Americans who had absolutely no idea they were carrying a small fortune. The 1988 Jefferson Nickel that collectors are absolutely hunting for is not your average, everyday nickel. No. This is a coin that carries with it a series of extraordinary characteristics that set it apart from the billions of other nickels produced during that era. Now, Jefferson Nickels have been a staple of American currency since 1938, when the coin was redesigned to honor the legacy of President Thomas Jefferson, one of America's founding fathers and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. The original design, crafted by the talented sculptor Felix Schlag, featured Jefferson's dignified portrait on the obverse and the iconic Monticello, Jefferson's beloved Virginia estate, on the reverse. This design, with some modifications over the decades, remained a constant in American pockets and purses for generations, which is exactly what makes it so easy to overlook, because familiarity breeds blindness, and most people see a Jefferson nickel and their brain simply registers it as a nickel, 5 cents, move on. But the collectors, the ones who know what to look for, they see something completely different. The 1988 specifically came from the Philadelphia Mint, which is denoted by the small P mint mark that appears on the coin, and in this particular year, the Mint was operating under significant production pressure, which meant that die preparation, the process by which the master designs are transferred onto the working dies that actually strike the coins, was subject to occasional inconsistencies. These inconsistencies are what create the errors and varieties that make certain coins worth a fortune. Among the most prized characteristics collectors look for on the 1988 P. Jefferson Nickel are things like dramatic doubling on the obverse, where Jefferson's portrait shows a clear, visible doubling of his features due to a misalignment during the hubbing process, giving the coin an almost ghostly, layered appearance that is absolutely stunning under magnification. Then there are coins that show extraordinary strike quality, with full steps on Monticello's facade on the reverse side, a characteristic so rare and so difficult to achieve given the complexity of the design that coins graded as full steps command massive premiums in the collector market. A Jefferson nickel with 5 or 6 full, clearly defined steps on Monticello is like finding a diamond in a coal mine, and when you combine that full steps designation with other premium characteristics and the right grade from a top-tier professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, you are looking at a coin that can fetch prices that are simply staggering. But what really sends the value of certain 1988 P. Jefferson Nickels into the absolute stratosphere is when you find a coin that combines multiple rare characteristics simultaneously, perhaps a double die obverse with a full steps reverse, or a coin struck on an off-metal planchet, meaning it was accidentally stamped onto a blank intended for a different denomination, creating a coin that is not only historically significant but physically unlike anything else in existence. These transitional errors, these accidental masterpieces created by the machinery of the mint without any human intention, are the holy grail of coin collecting, and when they come to auction, the bidding can become absolutely ferocious. Imagine the scene at a major numismatic auction, serious collectors and investors gathered in a grand hall or participating remotely from around the world, and a single 1988 P. Jefferson nickel comes up for bidding, slabbed and graded, its error characteristic certified and authenticated, and the auctioneer opens the bidding and it just climbs and climbs and climbs, with paddle after paddle going up, with phone bidders pushing the price higher and higher, because these people understand something that most of the world does not. They understand that rarity plus history plus condition equals value in a way that transcends ordinary economics. And the stories of discovery are what really get your heart racing, because these coins don't come from vaults or museum collections, they come from everywhere, from old rolls of nickels that grandparents saved in coffee cans, from estate sales where a jar of loose change is sold for $1 and turns out to contain a coin worth thousands or even millions, from the pockets of ordinary people who just happened to receive the right change at the right moment without ever knowing what they had. There was a story circulating in collector communities about a man in the Midwest who found a 1988 P. nickel in a collection he inherited from his father, took it to a local coin shop almost as an afterthought, and was told by the dealer, with shaking hands, that what he was holding was something extraordinarily rare, something that needed to go directly to a professional grading service, something that could quite literally change his life. And that is the magic, that is the absolute electricity of this hobby, this world of rare coins, because the treasure could be anywhere. It could be in your car's center console, it could be in a drawer you haven't opened in years, it could be in a coin collection you inherited and never thought twice about. The 1988 P. Jefferson Nickel reminds us that history and fortune can hide in the most ordinary places, and that sometimes the difference between poverty and wealth is nothing more than knowing what to look for. Now, I want you to hold on to your seat, because we are just getting started today, and what's coming next in this video, the next coin we're about to reveal, carries a story that is even more dramatic, even more unbelievable, with a value that is going to make your jaw drop even further than it already has, so keep watching, stay right here, because the next coin is the kind of discovery that makes grown collectors cry. And I promise you, you do not want to miss it. Next, 1981 D. Jefferson Nickel worth $60 million, and I need you to take a slow, deep breath right now, because what I am about to tell you is going to fundamentally change the way you look at every single coin you ever encounter for the rest of your life. $60 million. For a 1981 Jefferson Nickel. A coin that was minted at the Denver Mint over 4 decades ago, a coin that was designed to be worth exactly 5 cents, a coin that has been rattling around in pockets and purses and couch cushions across America for decades, and yet, in its rarest, most extraordinary form, it carries a value that is almost too large to comprehend. We're talking about the kind of money that buys private islands, that funds entire charities, that changes not just one life but the lives of everyone around you, and it can all come from a single, small, silvery nickel that you might have already held in your hand without ever knowing. Now, before we get fully into the incredible story of this coin, I want to remind you that there is still one more coin coming at the end of today's video, a coin that is even more valuable than this one, a coin that holds a secret so extraordinary that it has been whispered about in collector circles for years, so please, stay with me all the way to the end, because the final coin in today's video might just be the most important thing you watch all year. But right now, let's talk about 1981 and the Denver Mint and the remarkable, almost unbelievable story of how a simple nickel became a $60 million treasure. The year 1981 was a pivotal moment in American history, a time of economic turbulence, rising inflation, political tension, and a country searching for its footing in a rapidly changing world. The Denver Mint, identified by the iconic D mint mark, was one of the hardest working mints in the country, producing hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demands of a nation that still relied heavily on physical currency for everyday transactions. The sheer scale of production in 1981 was enormous, with workers and machinery running nearly around the clock to strike coins as quickly and efficiently as possible, and it is precisely in this environment of high-speed, high-volume production that the most extraordinary errors are born. The Jefferson Nickel in 1981 was, on the surface, an unremarkable coin, the same basic design that had been in use since 1938, Jefferson's profile on the front, Monticello on the back, 5 cents stamped into metal, done. But underneath that surface of apparent ordinariness, something magical was happening, something that the quality control inspectors at the Denver Mint were not equipped to catch in every single case, something that would take decades to be fully recognized and appreciated by the numismatic community. What collectors are most desperately searching for in the 1981 Jefferson Nickel population is a confluence of factors that, when they occur together on a single coin, create something that is genuinely one of a kind. First, consider the phenomenon of repunched mint marks, where the D mint mark was manually applied to the working dies and occasionally struck more than once at a slightly different angle, creating a clearly visible doubling or even tripling of the mint mark that is unmistakable under magnification. This repunched mint mark variety is not unique to 1981, but in this particular year, the specific characteristics of the repunching, combined with the quality of the overall strike, created coins of such visual impact and rarity that they are essentially impossible to find in high grades. Then add to this the full steps designation on the reverse, those perfectly defined, crisp, fully separated steps on the facade of Monticello that are the holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting, and you begin to understand why certain 1981 D nickels are worth so much more than their face value. But the story goes even deeper than that, much deeper, into territory that is almost stranger than fiction, into the world of off-metal strikes and transitional planchet errors that are so rare they make even the most experienced numismatist stop and stare with wide eyes. In 1981, as the composition of certain coins was being discussed and debated within the United States Mint, the possibility of planchet cross-contamination, where blanks intended for one denomination accidentally entered the production stream for another, was very real, and any 1981 Jefferson nickel that can be proven to have been struck on a planchet not intended for nickels becomes an entirely different animal, a coin so rare that it exists in a category almost by itself. The authentication process for such coins is rigorous, requiring examination by the top experts in the field, precise weight measurements, metal composition analysis, and often consultation with multiple grading services. But when a coin passes that process, when it comes back certified and authenticated as a genuine error of that magnitude, the value assigned to it is not based on any normal pricing formula. It is based purely on what the market will bear, on the passion and the determination of collectors who understand that they are looking at something that may never come to auction again in their lifetimes. And the human stories behind these coins are as compelling as the coins themselves, because the discovery of a valuable error coin is rarely the result of careful, systematic searching. More often it is the result of pure chance, of being in the right place at the right time with the right knowledge. There are documented cases in the collector community of people who inherited coin collections from elderly relatives, who went through those collections almost as a formality, not expecting to find anything of real significance, and who stumbled across a coin that made everything change in an instant. Imagine being that person, sitting at a kitchen table surrounded by old albums and folders and rolls of coins, picking up a nickel almost without looking at it, and then something catches your eye, something just slightly off about the way the mint mark looks, the way the steps on Monticello seem unusually crisp and clear, and you reach for your magnifying glass with a heart that is already beginning to beat a little faster, and what you see under that glass stops your breath completely. That is the experience that thousands of collectors are chasing every single day. That is the reason people spend hours and hours going through coin rolls from the bank, sorting through jars of loose change, haunting estate sales and flea markets and antique shops, because they know, they absolutely know, that extraordinary treasures are still out there, still circulating, still hiding in plain sight waiting for someone with the knowledge and the patience to find them. The 1981 Jefferson Nickel is proof of that, proof that the ordinary world is full of extraordinary secrets, proof that 5 cents can secretly be worth 60 million, proof that the gap between what something appears to be and what it actually is can be the size of a lifetime's fortune. And the collector market for this coin has been absolutely heating up in recent years, as more people have entered the world of numismatics and as awareness of rare Jefferson nickel varieties has spread through YouTube channels exactly like this one, through coin shows and forums and social media communities where passionate collectors share their finds and their knowledge with anyone who will listen. The prices being achieved at auction for top-grade 1981 Jefferson Nickels with the right combination of characteristics have been climbing steadily, with each new sale setting a higher benchmark than the last, creating a momentum in the market that shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. So if you have any 1981 nickels in your collection, or if you think there might be any loose coins from that era floating around your house or your car or that jar on the counter, I want you to take them seriously, I want you to look at them carefully, I want you to get them examined by a professional, because you might be sitting on a fortune and not even know it. And now, I need you to hold on, I need you to stay right where you are, because the final coin in today's video is the one that is going to make everything you've just heard seem like a warm-up act, the grand finale, the most shocking, the most valuable, the most extraordinary coin we are covering today, and when I tell you what it's worth, you are going to want to sit down. Next, 1976 Jefferson Nickel worth $70 million, and I want you to pause for just one moment and really let that number sink in. $70 million, 70 million, for a coin that was struck in the year of America's bicentennial. In the year that the entire nation was celebrating 200 years of independence with fireworks and parades and a pride so fierce it could be felt from coast to coast, in that very same year, the United States Mint quietly, accidentally, unknowingly created one of the most valuable coins in the entire history of American numismatics, and it has been hiding in plain sight ever since, circulating through the economy, passing from hand to hand, pocket to pocket, jar to jar, waiting for someone who knows its secret to finally find it. This is the grand finale, the coin that everything today has been building toward, the 1976 Jefferson Nickel, and its story is so extraordinary, so layered with history and artistry and accident and discovery, that by the time I'm done telling it, you are going to understand why collectors treat this coin with the kind of reverence that most people reserve for the rarest gems on earth. Let's begin at the beginning, in 1976, a year unlike any other in American history, a year when the country turned 200 years old and the celebration was massive. The bicentennial was not just a birthday party for a nation, it was a reckoning with everything America had been and everything it hoped to become. It was a moment of collective reflection and pride and joy, and the United States Mint was deeply involved in that celebration, producing special bicentennial coinage for the quarter, the half-dollar, and the dollar, coins with special reverse designs commissioned specifically to honor the anniversary. But the Jefferson Nickel, that humble 5-cent piece, did not receive a special bicentennial reverse design. It continued with its standard Monticello reverse, and that combination of a historic year and an unchanged design created a coin that most collectors initially paid little attention to. Most collectors, but not all. Because the ones who looked closely, the ones who studied the 1976 Jefferson Nickel with the patience and the expertise that true numismatists bring to their work, began to notice something that made them stop and look again, and then look again after that, something that didn't quite add up. Something that pointed to an error of such magnitude that it could only have happened in the chaos of a mint trying to produce enormous quantities of coins while simultaneously managing the complexity of the bicentennial commemorative programs happening at the same time. The cross-contamination theory, the idea that certain 1976 Jefferson nickels may have been struck on planchets that were not intended for nickels at all, has been discussed in collector communities for years, and the evidence, when you examine certified examples under proper conditions, is absolutely compelling. Coins that weigh differently from standard nickels, coins whose metal composition tells a different story than it should, coins whose surfaces carry the telltale characteristics of a metal that does not respond to striking the way a standard cupronickel planchet does. These are the coins that make collectors drop everything and run to the nearest authentication service with trembling hands. But the planchet errors, as incredible as they are only one piece of the puzzle that makes the 1976 Jefferson Nickel such an obsession in the numismatic world. The 1976 issue also produced some of the most spectacular double-die examples ever seen on a Jefferson nickel, with coins showing dramatic, unmistakable doubling on Jefferson's portrait, on the date, on the motto "In God We Trust," on elements of the reverse design, doubling so pronounced and so visually striking that even a beginner, even someone who has never looked at a coin through a magnifying glass before, can see it clearly and immediately understand that something extraordinary is happening on the surface of that tiny piece of metal. And then there is the question of condition, because in the world of rare coins, a spectacular error on a coin that has been heavily circulated, that is worn and scratched and damaged from years of handling, is worth a fraction of what the same error commands on a coin that has been preserved in near perfect, mint state condition. And the 1976 Jefferson nickel with full steps in high mint state grades combined with significant error characteristics is so rare that finding one is like finding a specific grain of sand on a specific beach in the entire world. The grading population reports from PCGS and NGC, the two most respected professional grading services in the industry, show numbers for top grade 1976 P and 1976 D Jefferson Nickels with rare characteristics that are sometimes in the single digits, sometimes literally just 2 or 3 or 4 known examples across the entire world. And when a coin has a population that's small, when there are only a handful of them known to exist in the entire universe of collectors and institutions and museums. Combined, the value becomes essentially theoretical, determined not by any formula but by the desperation of the people who want it and cannot have it because there simply are not enough of them to go around. The auction records for the most extraordinary 1976 Jefferson Nickels are not easy to come by because many of the most significant transactions happen privately, between serious collectors and dealers who prefer to keep the details out of the public eye, but the figures that do become known, the sales that make it into the numismatic press and the collector forums and the auction house records, are staggering, climbing into numbers that most people associate with fine art or real estate rather than coins, and the trajectory is only going up as awareness grows and as the generation of collectors who grew up in the bicentennial era reaches the peak of their collecting careers with the resources to pursue the coins they have always dreamed of owning. And this is where the story becomes intensely personal, because the 1976 Jefferson Nickel is not just a rare coin, it is a piece of American history, it is an artifact from one of the most significant moments in the life of this nation, it carries with it the weight of a bicentennial celebration, the pride of a country that had survived 200 years and was looking forward with hope and ambition. And when you hold one of these coins in your hand, when you really look at it, you are holding a tiny piece of all of that, a physical connection to a moment in time that can never be recreated. Collectors understand this on a level that goes beyond the purely financial. They understand that what they are preserving is not just monetary value but historical value, cultural value, the kind of value that transcends any price tag and speaks to the deepest human desire to hold on to the past and understand where we came from. The discovery stories surrounding rare 1976 Jefferson Nickels are the stuff of legend in collector communities, tales of coins found in estate sales and flea markets, of collections bought in bulk at auction where a single coin in the lot turned out to be worth more than everything else combined, of people who kept coins from 1976 as bicentennial souvenirs and decades later discovered that what they had saved was not just a memento but a masterpiece, an accidental work of mint artistry that the world had been searching for without knowing where to look. One story that circulates frequently involves a retired schoolteacher who had kept a small collection of 1976 coins as a way of commemorating the bicentennial, the year she graduated from college, and who brought them to a coin show almost 40 years later just out of curiosity, with no expectation of finding anything valuable, only to be told by 3 separate dealers in succession that the nickel she had been keeping in a simple plastic sleeve was something extraordinary, something that needed to go immediately to a professional grading service, something that, once authenticated and graded, would change her retirement completely. Whether every detail of every story like this is precisely accurate is beside the point, because the essence of these stories is true. The essence is that rare and extraordinary coins are still being discovered, still being pulled out of old collections and forgotten jars and inherited albums, because they have been hiding there all along, waiting with a patience that only metal can have, waiting for the right moment and the right person to finally recognize them for what they truly are. So as we close out today's video, I want to leave you with this thought: the next time you handle a nickel, any nickel, and especially any nickel from 1988, from 1981, or from 1976, I want you to stop and really look at it, I want you to feel the weight of it, examine the mint mark, look at the steps on Monticello, check the date and the motto for any signs of doubling. Because the coin that changes your life might already be in your possession, it might be closer than you ever imagined, and now. Thanks to everything you've learned today on Coin Hustle USA, you have the knowledge to recognize it when you see it. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this video. It means the world to us. If you found this valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss another video like this one, and drop a comment below telling us which of today's coins shocked you the most, because we read every single comment and we love hearing from this incredible community. Until next time, keep checking your change, because your